Hello, Rena.
Hello, Dr. Bach.
On YouTube, I don't see myself on the screen. Let me make sure I have my uh hopefully it hopefully it fixes itself.
Okay.
Uh Maybe Zoom. Anyway, okay, let's just see how it goes as we go. Um Welcome everyone to a free association conversation between Rena K and myself, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. Links will be in the description to learn more about us and our offerings. In these live stream free association conversations, Rana and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is it really just orientation and pleasure? That's it? Okay. Um, I'm still seeing that only the speaker is showing. Um, I forgot the setting on this. I think my Zoom recently updated and reset. Do you remember the setting so I can so that people see both of us at the same time? Is
I
it
actually don't know that. No.
okay?
That's in a YouTube or is it a Zoom? So under the
Wait,
view,
wait,
if you do gallery
wait.
view.
I think hopefully it resolves. Okay, I'll stare at my at the YouTube. Right now it's working well. So
Oh, okay.
okay, sorry about that.
Great.
Let's just okay, so the topic is it really just orientation and pleasure? That's it. So why this topic? There's a lot in my mind about it, and a lot of different angles on it. Um, so for people who are new to organic intelligence, I I present organic intelligence as boiled down to two things and two things only: orientation and pleasure. And orientation is automatic, effortless connection to the environment through the five senses. And pleasure is feeling good or better or less bad than a few seconds ago. That's pleasure in a nutshell. And
Can I interject? I just want to interject. I
yeah,
love that you say that. The like feeling better than you did 5 seconds ago, or I've often said, you're feeling better than your last worst moment. That even that is going to be more pleasurable. And sometimes that's the level we're working on, that we may not get to the point of full on pleasure. We're just getting less bad in the beginning for some of us in our biology. And to me, that's like so huge. So I just wanted to highlight that because I think that's great that you said that.
thank you very much. I'm I'm a little distracted because I listened to you. Thank you. I'm a little distracted because I'm still paying attention to the YouTube about whether both of us are showing up. Maybe I'll just try to let that go or see if my system can let it go. Thank you. And actually, the way I described pleasure and the way you complimented it, I think it's a precise, essentialized way of presenting pleasure. At the same time, often pleasure, even within organic intelligence circles and the theory itself, is used to only refer to feeling good. So there can be a bit of confusion when the use of pleasure gets ambiguous. But
Mhm.
let's see how we go.
Yeah.
All right. So why this topic? So okay, so one angle on it is I am essentializing organic intelligence into those two things, and some in the organic intelligence community may have an issue with that, thinking I'm oversimplifying it, and there's a bunch of other stuff that I should. For example, I almost never mention allostasis or complexity science or stabilizing blue or biology to cosmos. Those things I almost never. It could be that some of those things I just said for the first time right now with you. I don't mention them because I think in one reason is for many of them, it's just ways of specifying pleasure in more detail, but that takes some explanation. So, um,
Well, you're also operationalizing it. Not only are you
yes,
essentializing it, you're operationalizing. So you're looking at what is the fundamental, the essential operation that
yes,
we engage in so that our biology can grow. All those other things are
okay,
just
yes,
further descriptions of it, explanations of why, giving some possible theoretical reasons as to why it works. Um, and that may or may not be necessary. I mean, for some people, that helps them actually do orientation and pleasure, that actually pursue that. And some of those whys are helpful. But operationally, in terms of our lives, like those are the two main things it comes down to.
Yes, thank you. So one one motivation for this question is that many people, when they learn about organic intelligence and see that I'm saying it's all about orientation and pleasure, may be puzzled or skeptical. Why? Because it seems way overly simple. If you look at some main therapeutic modalities, okay, let me back up a step. First of all, the aim of organic intelligence is something called auto-organization, which is a technical concept referring to your biology increasing its capacity to process information and intensity automatically and easily. Orientation and pleasure are the two conditions that lead to that process of auto-organization. But for now, I'm going to leave that out. I'm just mentioning it to set it aside. I'm just going to use I'm going to adopt a general, vague, common sense idea of healing and growth. The kind of when people talk about going to therapy or coaching, they want to grow, they want to heal, they want to be happier. I'm just going to use that as the target, not worry about the specific of AO of auto organization. Okay,
Okay.
so now orientation and pleasure, the technical aim is auto organization, but we could drop that out and still say orientation and pleasure are the path, are the optimal and deepest and really comprehensive, according to organic intelligence, path to healing and growth, using healing and growth in a common sense, more general, vague way that is applicable to anyone, to all therapy that people go
Hmm.
to. So, so when you look at main therapeutic modalities, plucking from the air of the mainstream, like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, these dominant therapies are massive. Uh, they they contain a lot of techniques.
Hmm.
Dialectical behavioral therapy, for example, I think it groups the techniques into four quadrants, like mindfulness, something else. I don't even remember, but there are four categories. I think there are four categories, and underneath each category is a list of skills, naming off at random from my head. Like, okay, here's one skill, urge surfing. Here's another skill, thought stopping. And I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting. I think thought stopping is there. Maybe it's not. If it's not, I apologize. I don't remember. But this is just to give examples. And here's another skill: identify your emotions. Here's another skill: eat something. Here's another skill: find five things to look at. So you get elaborate lists of long lists of techniques. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, you get all the okay, monitor for black and white thinking, monitor for catastrophizing, monitor for emotional reasoning. So these therapies and modalities have a lot of content. And then here comes organic intelligence with just two things. And you can think there's a reaction of how can that possibly be true? And one funny anecdote, one client of mine, the very intelligent CEO, Ivy League trained, has been through a lot of therapy, has some kind of he's enamored by organic intelligence. He finds it seductive. At the same time, it doesn't make sense to him.
Hmm.
So in our sessions, he's enamored by it, but then says, "This doesn't make any sense, Bach. It's just I'm just looking at objects." And I even joked, said, "Yeah, it's a scam. I mean, yeah, we somehow convinced you that looking at objects will heal you." So there's this attitude of how can it possibly be just orientation and pleasure? And then if that's true, what would we say about these mainstream therapies that are very complicated and have all these long lists? Now, are you interested in taking it from here and saying stuff, or I can continue? But
Yeah,
I can
I
continue.
think it's really,
No
I think
pressure. No
it's, well,
pressure.
I think it's interesting, right? The comparison,
Yeah.
and in some ways, I'm thinking about how oftentimes these long lists of, and I haven't recently gone and I like looked at the written literature. I just know these th more through therapists that I know and the conversations we've had. But if
Yeah.
we looked at these lists and if we got back to them, probably a lot of those things will eventually come back down to, well, if you're doing what they say, then you're orienting. Right? If you're doing what they say, so if you're changing your thoughts or your thoughts stopping, that, well, if you're not letting the thoughts run willy-nilly and take you along for the ride, what's happening otherwise? Well, you'd be orienting. If you are not overgeneralizing, say, and you're watching out for overgeneralizations, well, an overgeneralization is just going to be a process of not being oriented. So I think there's a way in which all of those lists of things to do, and very often, we talking about in organic intelligence that we're trying to get away from all of the things to do more and more of because all of those doing things actually takes us off track and exhausts us, right, energetically. And so the things that don't energetically exhaust us are orientation and pleasure. And so those are two thoughts that I had in response to what you said so far.
The first thought was that for at least many of these myriad techniques, they are connected to orientation in that if you can do them, you're more oriented. I think that was your first
Right.
thought,
Yep.
right? And the second was a distinctive feature of orientation and pleasure is that they're energetically less expensive.
Yes.
Yes, I think another point that here that's um, a fundamental point about orientation and pleasure that's sometimes made is that they're forms of prepared learning. I haven't talked about that in any of my videos or Substack posts, but that's
Yep.
maybe in the future. In the sense that uh, orientation and pleasure are special in the sense that our biology wants to and is prepared to incorporate them and do them, unlike other skills which it may resist doing, and repetition may not help that
Right.
matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Nice.
okay, so yeah. So what could you what do you mean when you say your first point that for many of these techniques from other therapies, if you can do them, that means you're more oriented. What can you explain that or justify that
Yeah.
or yeah?
Yeah. So if orientation is connecting to the external environment through your senses, then you are automatically going to be relating to the world or relating to reality as it is in the moment. So if you have thoughts that are causing troubles, if you're overgeneralizing, if you are unable to separate past from present, or if you're super anxious about the future, like all of those things are forms of not being connected to the external environment through your senses. They are not being in the immediate moment of the present moment. They are a result of conditioning through the past, right? And the brain networks that get created with that. So in essence, it's almost the simplistic quote of be here now. It is allowing us to do that. It's allowing our biology and our awareness and our consciousness to come into, well, what's really right now, as opposed to being so dominated and influenced by this past conditioning that's trying to predict our future and keep us out of trouble. What keeps us out of trouble is what's happening right now and then an accurate response to that. And so orientation to me is the way to do that. Pleasure is going to be a little bit more complicated than that, but so let's just stay more maybe for with
Yeah.
orientation. How if you are able to do all the things that the different therapies are trying to get you to do, they all will lead back to a person who's going to become an oriented in an oriented state. If so, it's like they're trying to use these techniques to get back to orientation. And what organic intelligence is saying, let's just start with orientation. If you do orientation sufficiently, then all those other things will happen automatically.
Thank you. I may disagree with you on something depending on
Okay.
if I'm interpreting you correctly, but let me just offer an example and see where we go.
Okay.
If um okay, a client, he's dealing with, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. I'll be alone forever. People keep rejecting me. I hate that I'm ugly. I want to kill myself. Ugly, ugly, ugly. So that's his main thing, let's just say.
Mhm.
And then you get a suite of therapeutic interventions. Reality check it. Are you at? You can do reality checking. Are you actually ugly? You can try to just stop a thought and see if that works. You can try to think about the pros of being ugly. You can try to go to the gym. You can go on Reddit and commiserate with other people who are ugly or think they're ugly, and maybe you'll feel better. Maybe you can try to make money. Maybe you can get advice on the internet. Maybe you can just suffer. Maybe you can. I mean, who just, or maybe you can do urge surfing when you want to go for the next slice of cake that will make you even more overweight, and you think so just you have a DBT therapist, you have a CBT therapist, and they've tried everything in the book on the books to try to like, let's help you, you know, try to manage or overcome the reality or just a thought of ugliness. Okay, so I think that I if you're saying the following, I think I agree, or I'm with you that if to the extent any of these things work, whatever the tool, like reality checking or focus on the positive or something, goal setting, self acceptance, or radical honesty, who knows, all these different tools, to the extent they work, that means that intensity is dying down inside, unpleasant intensity. And if unpleasant intensity is dying down, orientation, which is a natural process that wants to happen, will just appear because it, by default, your biology wants to let the eyes go where they want to go. Oh, I see the wall. I see the sky. I see the trees. I hear things. My senses are connected to the environment, and to the degree environmental information is salient, I feel neutral to pleasant, not perturbed. To the degree the 5,000 therapeutic modal interventions work to reduce painful intensity, they're getting you close to orientation. I think that's one thing.
Yes, I
Yeah.
would. Yes, I.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
basically what I would say. And I would, and just one little thing. It's a minor thing, but I would say it's not so much that the biology wants to orient; it's by default orienting. So the biology is default orienting. This is how we can walk through a room and not trip over things and walk upstairs, and like the fact that we can function in the world in terms of our physical space only happens because we're actually orienting. We're actually taking in information from the external environment. So it's the fact that that is happening. It just very much gets covered up in terms of our attentional space, right? And that's what we're trying to do. What my understanding in organic intelligence is, we're trying to bring attentional space. We're expanding the attentional bandwidth that is actually paying attention to the external environment instead of it just being kind of an out of awareness kind of thing that's happening through habit.
Thank you for saying that I had said the biology wants to orient, and you said the biology is orienting. So let me just solidify that. So everyone, if you're alive and not running into walls, you're oriented to some degree because you have to see the wall, you have to avoid the coffee table, you have to get out of the way of traffic. So orientation is there. It's just highly compromised if there's painful intensity.
Yes.
Uh, I want
Sometimes
to,
to the point that you'll run into the tables.
yeah, yeah, right. And if it's really bad, right,
Right.
yeah. So when I say the biology wants to orient, I'm being a little bit figurative and employing teleology where it's not real, but I'm that's a deeper. Well, here's one example I have in mind. You will get signals from your biology that point towards orientation, which you can ignore or not, but the signals are there. So, for example, you're headed towards a party, you're getting nervous. Will people laugh at me for being ugly? Will they call me ugly? Am I ugly? Blah, 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 ugly, 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 ugly. And then as you're near the party, you see the moon and you feel the breeze, and there's this slight, maybe weak, but there's an impulse to, what if I just stood outside and felt the breeze, or took a walk and just kind of enjoy the moonlight and the sound of the waves. So there's a I would call that figuratively or literally. I'll worry about that later or never. We'll see. Probably later. Um, a wanting. The biology is like, how about we just do some orientation before you go into the party? Because who knows what the hell is going to happen when you enter that room. And so I just mean that. So you are oriented because you can walk into the party without and not run into a bus or get hit by a car. And there are signals in the biology that point you towards orientation.
Right. And we
Okay.
can choose to join with those signals and amplify those signals, or we can ignore them to our peril, or just our increasing intensity.
Yeah.
So part of what we're trying to do in organic intelligence is begin to uh, consciously choose to amplify those signals.
Yes. Thank you. The part that I so I think I don't have a disagreement with you. And I'm also wondering why do I mention publicly or even worry about whether I disagree with you or agree with you. So that's something I'll file away for myself. Um, and I'll look to some for to DBT for some solutions to my
Of
that.
course.
So anyway, but okay, so th when you were talking about, well, if you can do the thought stopping, if you can do the monitoring for cognitive distortions and so forth, you're more oriented. My concern was that, in fact, from an organic intelligence perspective, the applying many of these therapeutic interventions keeps you disoriented or can keep you away from
Okay.
orientation. So that's what I was, but I don't think, I think you would agree. It's just that
Sure.
you just,
Sure.
yeah. So if you try to do thought stopping, if you try to do, well, okay, am I ugly? Let me objectively, am I ugly? Okay, but suppose I am. Is it really as bad as well, no, there's evidence because there are ugly people who have good personalities, they make money, or they get plastic surgery, or, even if you're ugly to most people, there's some people. So if you do a lot of these thoughts, that just kicks up,
Yeah.
that can kick up and maintain unpleasant intensity. And you may feel better, but the feeling better may be coupled with increased painful intensity, and the feeling better will be generated by more internal intensity as opposed to orientation. So I think that these, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think 100% I agree with you on
okay,
that. And that is a danger of some of the therapeutic conventions that are focused on trying to fix ourselves by doing things. And my comment was to the point that, so often if we are to the degree that we are successful in doing those things, it would point us back to orientation. So why
right,
not start with orientation? Right? As the means and move forward from there. We can skip all of these different practices, trying attempts at trying to do things, and in a sense bypass those and just get to the source of when we're oriented. We are not going to have I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly, I'm ugly. So the more oriented we are, the less those thoughts will even emerge. And so and I think anecdotally, I think last time we talked about, that some of the anecdotal experiences of our clients, which is that yes, that's actually what happens. That by practicing orientation over and over and over and over and over again, they suddenly go, oh, like I didn't feel as much intensity, or these thoughts didn't that I typically have don't emerge, or didn't emerge in this moment. They used to always in this moment. So to me, it's super profound. um, that's what my experience has been. And so my change has come about through years and years of doing orienting, even before I even knew what that was conceptually. It was just something
no,
I was doing. And sure enough, oh, the intensity's less. And these different moments would happen and be like, oh, and how did that happen? The intensity was less. Like I had to reverse engineer it through coming across the organic intelligence, why what I did was working. And it really did, and it wasn't an instantaneous process. It didn't happen in a year. It happened because the intensity was so high and off the charts. It took a while to rebuild the brain networking patterns to be able to even orient, let alone stay with it and sustain that over a period of time, such that those negative thoughts or the fears or inhibition, like such that those would actually start minimizing and not become the dominant experience. But yeah, it came down to orientation and pleasure. And so my experience, I know, is that. And then I've been able to watch client after client after client after client that if they really decide to take this on, then and sometimes it's a challenge to get to suggest maybe letting go of trying to change your thought and figure out if there's a thought that's more accurate or true or less painful. Like the whole process. And trust me, I tried all that too. It's like, what if you gave that up? What if it really could be as easy as let's all that time that you're spending trying to change your thoughts or trying to get yourself to feel compassion to yourself, or trying to, not overgeneralize and separate your mother from this friend, like all that effort. What if all that energy got put back into the connecting to the external environment through our senses? Like if we did that, our biology would grow so much faster. And we would discover that all of a sudden that what emerges, the data that emerges in terms of our thoughts and our emotions, it's changes. It just changes it.
Anecdotal corroboration from my end, just plucking one client, long-term client. This client started out drawing from many different therapeutic approaches, a lot of cognitive stuff, a lot of somatic interventions, a lot of brain retraining stuff, a lot of Eastern, like Qigong, Tai Chi, just a lot of Feldenkrais, just a lot of different things. I'm sure many of them are helpful. There's no question about that. But over and so when I first taught or said orientation for this client, it was okay. I'll take it. So I'll add on orientation to my 50,
List.
50 things. And over time, the growth has been very fast and it's been just, okay, I'm starting to see the client. I'm my client right now. It's just orientation. Like orientation just grew like, oh, it is. How can it possibly be that? But it is. It's
Yeah.
everything.
And then that list of things, if any of them happen to be pleasurable, you do them for the sake of their pleasure rather than trying to fix yourself. So if you find Qigong immensely pleasurable, you're out there doing it because it gives you that experience of enjoyment, and not because you're trying to heal yourself or make yourself grow or be different than you are.
The idea we've presented here is that of if you take the magazine of the zillions of therapeutic techniques across zillions of modalities, we're saying that what the value in them is the promotion of orientation and pleasure. So we're offering orientation as pleasure as the direct route. I mean, it actually doesn't have to be direct. You can still do Feldenkrais. Are you catastrophizing? Let's try urge surfing. Let's try exercise and laughter therapy. But keeping in mind that it's all roads lead to should ideally lead to orientation and pleasure.
Yeah,
That's the
being
plan.
easier to access, being
Being easier
easier to
to
do.
being
Yeah.
easier to access. Yes,
No.
we have 2 minutes left,
Oh,
which is
geez.
fine. I can end on time. But this is actually I just scratched the surface of where I wanted to get to because that was only the thought that orientation and pleasure it can't just be orientation and pleasure. That's too simple. What about why are all these therapies out there with their zillion techniques existing if it's all just orientation and pleasure? That's only actually one motivation for my question today of is it really just orientation and pleasure? So maybe in a next we can discuss my other avenues or just something else. But just
Do you want to give it as a teaser?
well, in organic intelligence, sometimes you get the idea that orientation and pleasure are a foundation or a platform for the deeper work or the real work. Some people flirt with that idea. And then another avenue is this may come from like this like a more psychoanalyst kind of person saying that maybe for many therapies the goal is symptom reduction, but psychoanalysis would say the deeper goal is self-knowledge, depth, and orientation and pleasure are just they're good at symptom reduction maybe, but they're not. But that doesn't do the deeper work. So, but I think there are a lot of things to say there, but maybe we'll get to them. But those are a few. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I think those would be really great to
Um,
process, especially this idea that even within organic intelligence, the doing these things are really so that we can do the other, say, trauma work. And I think many of the organic intelligence students, the people in the coaching program, keep waiting for, well, when are you going to give us these lists of techniques that teach us how to work with all these different traumas? And the funny thing is as we do this, and I would have to say for me, it's taken me a long time to get here myself, so I completely understand that it takes a long time to undo the enamoration with all these things that are wrong, and then therefore all the techniques that can come along with that, including the juice we as therapists get from when clients have big cathartic experiences or whatever, that it takes a long time to realize, and I think I realized it mostly through doing my group on shame reduction and shame being really at the core of everything and probably one of the most intense emotions people describe. And yet what do we do year after year after year after year is just some variation of orientation and pleasure, orientation and pleasure. Are there different ways of doing it and different ways I get to sneak it in a sense with groups? Yes. All right. I just create new activities and angles, but every one of them comes down to the same two principles of orientation and pleasure. And even not it's taken me a long time to learn that really that actually is what's necessary. And if we do this sufficiently, all the other begins to kind of fall away of its own. And, to me, it's like how nice is that? Like there is no goal that we're trying to get to of like, oh, now we're gonna technique people. Right? We get them doing orientation and pleasure, and then we're now going to use these techniques to try to get rid of something. And the fact is those techniques become unnecessary because the biology will take care of it.
Yeah, the techniques are more like the third wheel in the tricycle. I mean, we're aiming at the bicycle, which is just you can ride orientation and pleasure. The rest is just we're trying to get it together. Um,
Yeah, it's in some ways, but yeah, I don't know if I'll agree
I was
with
gonna say,
that. That's an interesting analogy, but
yeah,
I think if we had times, we both abandon that one. So
I think I have withdrawn that. I was slipping into some kind of this. Let me just stop there. That last it was kind of half baked and in the moment. I'm not sure what I even said. So let's just okay. Maybe to be continued next week. We'll see.
okay,
Thank you, Rena, for this free association conversation. You can learn more about either of us in the links in the description.
okay.
See you next time.